So I'm going to start off by saying, where are we? And you say, here. And I say, what time is it? And you say, now. Where are we?
Here.
What time is it?
Now.
What time is it?
Now.
Where are we?
Here.
Where are we?
Here.
What time is it?
Now.
Very good. Thank you. Now I want to try another exercise. All I want you to do is take a very big breath, and I want you to think about as you exhale. So just inhale, and then exhale. Okay. Now how many times do you go through a day and you don't even remember breathing? So I use these exercises to bring us here now, to drive home the point that I want us to be very mindfully present and be here now. And right now, I'm going to talk about why do good leaders go bad, okay? Why are there so many bad leaders? Well, the Gallup Poll has studied 1 million employees over hundreds of organizations and realized that people do not leave companies, they leave bad managers. That the number one reason people quit their jobs is because of a bad manager. And the criteria under which people will stay and be loyal and engaged is all under the influence of the immediate manager. So again, people leave bad managers, not bad companies. Actually, they say people join companies, they leave bad managers. Now, when I use the word leader, I'm defining it as anyone in a position to influence the lives of others. So this could be a parent, could be a pastor, boss, teacher, manager, anyone, coach, okay? So given that definition, how many of you would say that you've been under the influence of a bad leader? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. How many of you have seen the movie with Jennifer Aniston called Horrible Bosses? Say yes.
Yes.
And I hear that it's popular enough that they're even making a sequel. So if you really want to know more about bad managers, bad bosses, workingamerica.org, they do an annual bad boss contest. Now, you would not believe the stories. I mean, if you want to read some really interesting true stories, go to that website. Just Google bad boss contest, but it is on workingamerica.org. Well, for the past 10 years, I've been interviewing some of the top thought leaders. I call them leadership sages. Some of the top executive coaches and in the country. And my main driving question was, how can I best prepare people to be the kinds of leaders that you think are needed in these uncertain times? And out of that research, then I distilled themes. But one big theme was that leaders don't let ego win. And so this whole idea of the ego, I believe that leaders should clear obstacles, not be the obstacle. And sure, there might be some evil people out there, but for the most part, I think people just do not understand the ego. And ego development should be part of leadership development. So what do we do about that? Okay, and what is the ego? Well, we talk about the ego as if it's something that we can touch, see, feel, go grab, put on a shelf. The ego itself is really deeply ingrained patterns of self-protection or even self-deception. The idea that the ego wants to protect us. The ego is more interested in our best interest than it is in the interest of the organization or of other people. So the ego wants us to be okay. The ego wants us to win. The ego wants our opinion to be right. And what we have to do is control the ego, not let the ego control us. So that's really kind of the shift that I want you to think about. That we all have to have an ego, we have an ego, it's important, but that we control the ego and not let the ego control us. In fact, one of my sages said that the ego is the difference between what is and what we want. So the actual reality or what our needs and desires are. So we want the promotion. We want a different job. We want a bigger house. We want to look like him or her, but we don't. And so it's that difference that really is the ego. And what we have to do is learn to let go. Learn to let go so that we can control that. Well, what are ways of doing that? Well, I just have some images. Some very typical ways are what we have to do is slow down. Okay, and we have to go to the core. So I brought this as a metaphor, nesting dolls, okay, Russian nesting dolls. But I just brought this to illustrate that we need to go to the core, that we need to go deeper to really get to know ourselves. Another metaphor I use is a snow globe. If you shake it all up and the snow's all over, that snow, when it's all over the place, it's our life, it's the workplace, it's society. And what we have to do is slow down, because it's when the snow settles that we can see clearly. And leaders need to see clearly in order to make good decisions and to create a place where others want to work. So how do we slow down? We need to pause, because as we know in this society, type A behavior, which is very fast-paced and can be impatient, multitasking, and actually research on multitasking says that it's not as efficient or productive. So we need to find ways to slow down and pause. And some common ways are yoga, as illustrated here, Tai Chi, or even just walking meditation. The idea is it's not competitive. We're not talking about racing or competing. We're talking about slowing down. And really, we're talking about anything that can get us to stop thinking. Because if you're familiar with meditation, this whole idea of monkey mind, that we need to slow down, we need to pause, we need to stop, we need to really be able to see clearly. And ultimately, our goal is to be able to make a conscious decision that we want to be people who others might follow. So I think the ultimate question is, would you follow yourself? And I leave you with this quote, one of my sages, Michael Carroll, the author of The Mindful Leader. I'll leave that with you. But the idea is, I think that the shift again is we want to control the ego. We don't want the ego to control us. And we're human. So what happens is the ego manifests itself. How do we know when the ego's kind of creeping up? We know it because the ego manifests itself in terms of jealousy, envy, greed, blaming others. Defensiveness is a big one. Not open to feedback. So when we sense those feelings, we need to let go. And sometimes for me, I find that if I just breathe deeply, and while I'm breathing, I say to myself, let it go, let it go, let it go. Then I find that I'm in more control, because I want to be a good leader, I want to be someone others might follow, and I want to create a place where people want to work. So, where are we? Here. What time is it? Now. Okay.